Hello and welcome to another episode of The Morning Brew, live on NTN, bringing you the latest updates from the government of St. Lucia. Today is the 21st of August 2020, the last Friday that we will see for this month, going into a new month come next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching on air, online, we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, as well as our cable channel 122. A special good morning to you. I'd like to also say a special good morning to those who are watching from abroad, St. Lucians in the diaspora and well-wishers globally who are watching and keeping abreast as to what is happening in our sweet island of St. Lucia. We do have a special interview this morning. The National Youth Council, they have launched an educational assistance drive, and that is ahead of the reopening of the new academic year. It's dubbed Pledge for a Child. We will be expanding on that initiative of the NYC later on in the program with the interview with representatives from the NIC. But in the meantime, the latest stories for the 24-hour news cycle. The fluid nature of the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in the revision of St. Lucia's travel bubble. Also, St. Lucia's Tourism Authority is laser focused on maintaining the island's competitive edge, and preparations are ongoing for the opening of the new academic year. And that's when we will thereafter segue to the interview with the NIC. It's about to be a packed morning. Stay with us. More news, interview coming up on the other end of this break.
What does coronavirus have in common with love? Both are highly contagious. Spread love, not the virus. Like you, COVID-19 loves a lime. Beach, river, or fed. Coronavirus is like these people who track every lime just to invade. The best way to put off invaders? Cancel the lime. Spread love, not the virus. Keep you and your crew corona-free. Live to lime another day.
Together let us win this war. St. Lucia be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
This is The Morning Brew live on NTN, and we're now on to the latest stories for this 24-hour news cycle. The fluid nature of the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in the revision of St. Lucia's travel bubble. 2 Caribbean countries have been removed from the bubble, that is Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago, due to increasing cases of COVID-19. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George says the revision is aimed at keeping St. Lucians safe. The travel bubble, she noted, must consist of countries with low to 0 cases of COVID-19. We open our morning brew with this story. After 2 more COVID-19 related deaths in Trinidad and Tobago and a steady increase in cases this past week, the Twin Island state has been struck off St. Lucia's list of designated travel bubble countries in the Caribbean. Daily, Trinidad and Tobago has recorded new patients by double digits. This week alone, officials there recorded over 200 new cases. In an update to the nation on Wednesday, 19th August 2020, officials in St. Lucia made the announcement. The revised list also excludes Guyana. Guyanese health officials reported 14 new cases and 4 COVID-19 related deaths as of Wednesday. Travelers from bubble countries are currently the only arrivals exempt from quarantine in St. Lucia once they present a negative COVID-19 test result. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George explains the vetting of bubble countries.
We are monitoring all of the islands, and we look at the last 7 days. We use 3 indicators when we assess the bubble islands. We look at the number of cases, the number of new cases of COVID-19 within the last 7 days. We look at the incidence of disease of COVID-19, that is number of new cases per 100,000 in the population. And we also look at the trajectory, if they're increasing, if they're decreasing, or if they're stable. And it gives us an idea of the level of risk to our island of them coming in, because the bubble countries, they need to come in with a negative test, but they're exempt from the quarantine. So we have to ensure that the level of risk is low enough to allow that possibility.
After the latest review, the government of St. Lucia has identified the following countries that present a low risk of transmission of COVID-19 as a designated travel bubble: Antigua and Barbuda, Anguilla, Barbados, Bonaire, British Virgin Islands, Curacao, Dominica, Grenada, Montserrat, St. Barthélemy, St. Kitts and Nevis, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In this week's update, health officials also re-emphasized the importance of the 14-day quarantine for travelers outside this bubble, as demonstrated by the latest case of COVID-19 in St. Lucia. Patient 26, a 32-year-old female, arrived in country on 9th August with a negative test result from New York City.
As per our protocol, she was placed in institutional quarantine at one of our public health facilities. And we have instituted a measure where after 7 days, we do the PCR testing again. On the 16th, she was tested positive. We got that result on the 17th, tested positive for COVID-19. So that being said, it gives the importance of persons who are either in institutional quarantine or in home quarantine, the importance of ensuring you adhere to that protocol where you stay in. What if this was somebody on home quarantine who after 7 days decided to go out? It means that there would be a possibility of community spread at that point.
Another measure to minimize the risk of possible COVID-19 transmission to local communities is the restriction of local guests at hotels. Locals are not permitted at hotels where visitors from international markets are allowed to stay. They must utilize properties certified for the travel bubble.
It is to reduce the contact of persons coming in who are still within that 14-day period and causing some level of transmission within the communities. So it is extremely important they are certified. There are other villas and guest houses that can be used for staycations and for persons within the bubble. It is important that we maintain that level of separation at this point, because the level of risk for introduction is still there.
The public is also reminded that permission must be obtained from the relevant authorities for mass crowd events. While permitted, such activities are restricted to 200 persons who are encouraged to keep a safe distance. For the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. That report there coming off of the update to the nation from state officials on where St. Lucia is at in terms of its COVID-19 response. The St. Lucia Tourism Authority's response to COVID-19 is being driven by the important need to ensure that the local tourism sector does not collapse under the strain of the pandemic. The Chief Education Officer spoke on the efforts during a panel discussion that was on NTN on Wednesday evening. Again, another story coming off of Wednesday's update to the nation.
The impact of COVID-19 on the tourism sector has been devastating, with some 14,000 St. Lucians who earn their livelihood from the travel and hospitality sectors on the breadline. Since the decision was taken to open the borders on July 9, the tourism hospitality sector has been slowly coming to life. To date, 2,000 tourism employees have returned to work. The agency responsible for marketing St. Lucia as a tourism destination has ramped up efforts to ensure that the island maintains its competitive edge despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Beverly Nicholson-Dotsey is the Chief Executive Officer of the St. Lucia Tourism Authority.
We really have had to be laser focused during this period in ensuring that we did two things. Making sure that St. Lucia remained top of mind in all of our core markets, the UK, Canada, the US, and the Caribbean. But in addition to that, we've had to implement those messages that tell about the fact that we want to be responsible in our reopening process. And so it has been twofold: making sure that St. Lucia is still the #1 destination to visit, but also conveying just how important it is for us to have health and safety procedures.
With the drastic revenue loss for central government, the Tourism Authority, as with all other departments, has had to review its budget. The CEO says the SLTA has been creative in using all social media platforms.
Starting with 7 Minutes in St. Lucia, which was widely popular, moving on to our featuring St. Lucian authors, looking at how we use limited digital marketing dollars to get the most bang for our buck. And we've also been just really out there in terms of public relations. We've had over 600 article stories placed about St. Lucia in the last 5 months. If we have to pay for that coverage, it would be almost US $5 million. So we've become even more creative in terms of getting our messaging out.
A critical component to sustaining a successful reopening of the tourism sector is airlift. Mrs. Doughty says the airlines are increasingly returning to the local skies.
Based on the maintaining of our relationships with the airlines, we're pleased to say that on a weekly basis, we have 2 flights from the UK, British Airways. We have 11 flights a week out of the US, and out of the Caribbean, we have over 700 seats per week. So in total, we're looking at 2,500 seats a week right now coming into St. Lucia, and we are gearing up our marketing efforts, understanding that as more hotels open come this fall, that airlift is a priority, and making sure that we maintain and grow that airlift throughout the season.
Chief Executive Officer of the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Beverly Nicholson Doughty. From the Government Information Service, Lisa Joseph reporting.
Thanks for that report. Also, some fine-tuning happening at the Urinor International Airport. Operations at that airport have been adjusted to comprehensively respond to COVID-19. Airport Manager Edgar Stevens says the established protocols have been incorporated into all aspects, including customs and immigration, port health, ports police, and airline staff. We go to our first clip from Mr. Edgar Stevens.
This has included structural implementation of checkpoints, the health facility. It has also meant new rules on wearing our PPEs, and also how we facilitate, how we move people through the space. So overall, we've had to change how we do things at UNR. COVID has taught us collaboration. We've had to collaborate both outside, of course, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Health, the CMO. We've also had to work with Events St. Lucia. So for SLASPA, working with other agencies on the outside, it has been a real learning process in terms of working outside. But also within the airport, we've had to realign or rework the way we do things. Usually it had become a norm for different agencies to work in more or less a bunker sort of mindset. Immigration does what immigration does, customs does what customs does. But COVID-19 has made us come together a lot more in terms of facilitating. So from the landing and positioning of a plane and moving the client across to when we actually put them on a taxi, we've had to work a lot closer, a lot, like, as I like to say, various units, but one operation. So we've definitely had to work a lot closer with each other.
That was Mr. Edgar Stevens, Airport Manager, and he went on to indicate that the health facility set up at HIA augurs well for the management of travelers as well as the safety of staff.
This has added another facet to what we do and another component to how we would usually facilitate. It has meant that the client would take more time moving through the space. Also, it would have meant that we need to communicate more. The operation would have to be more, it has become more complex. You have various people coming to St. Lucia to do various things, and they will be placed in different categories in the health facility. Also, the nurses, the frontline people would have various challenges as the operation goes. So the health facility has added more complexity to how we do things.
That was Airport Manager at the UNR International Airport, Mr. Edgar Stephen. Do stay tuned. We're due for another break. When we come back, we round off our news stories and get into the interview with representatives from the National Youth Council as they launch the Educational Assistance Drive, dubbed Pledge for a Child, ahead of the start of the new academic year. Stay with us.
She's been watching, waiting, wondering when the sands of time will give way to a tide of change, and for yesterday and today to become a new tomorrow. For a time when her sun can kiss the cheeks of your loved one and her stars can twinkle in her honeymoon skies. When her earthly embrace will reassure and calm your soul. And her unique view can change your whole perspective. Proudly, she has risen to meet new challenges and to provide safe harbor to all who reach her shores. For her hopes and dreams still stand, shoulder to shoulder, a precious reminder of experiences yet to come. So, wherever your moments and memories take you, let her sense of adventure set you free. She is Saint Lucia. Let her inspire you.
Thank you for staying with us. You are watching The Morning Brew live on NTN. We continue with our latest stories for the 24-hour news cycle. Preparations are ongoing for the opening of the new academic year beginning September 7th, 2020. Alyssa Joseph reports.
The Department of Education, Innovation and Gender Relations has been intently laying the groundwork for the commencement of the new academic year in September. The efforts have been more deliberate given the impact of COVID-19. Several meetings were held with various stakeholders, including the St. Lucia Teachers Union, the National Principals Association, the National Youth Council, the National Students Council, school boards, teachers and principals to decide upon the best path to the reopening. Dr. Fiona Phillip-Meyer is the Chief Education Officer.
The reopening of school is nothing that we take lightly. And so the first course of action was to get confirmation through the Department of Health, and in particular from the Office of the Chief Medical Officer, saying to us that a proposed reopening as of the 7th of September for children and the 31st of August for teachers is a possibility that we've been working towards, and we continue to engage our stakeholders, hopefully with the best possible program for our children who've been out of school since March, for the most part, except our grade 6 and our Form 5s.
Dr. Meyer says the department notes the public concern about the health and safety of students amid the threat of COVID-19. However, the Chief Education Officer says the Ministry of Health has been directing education officials with establishing the protocols needed to protect students, teachers, and ancillary staff at all schools. The phased reopening in June for the common entrance and CSEC examinations, she said, tested the system. That system, Dr. Meyer added, has been reviewed and fine-tuned.
Through the Environmental Health Unit, we've had the team at our schools, going through our schools to make sure that the proposals that we've looked at is up to standard and that we have gotten feedback from them as to the possible way forward.
As a proposed date for the reopening of school draws near, Dr. Meyer is imploring parents and guardians to ensure that they take advantage of all avenues of assistance available to them through the Department of Education, including the bursary for students entering secondary schools.
And as we speak, District 3 is being subsidized now, and it's been rolled out in all of the districts, and it will be rolled out in the ones that haven't gone through it. We appreciate that every little bit counts, and that this support to families, to parents, will go towards helping our children transition from grade 6 into Form 1.
On Monday, 24th August 2020, a comprehensive discussion on the new academic year will be broadcast live on the National Television Network and partner stations. From the Government Information Service, Lucia Joseph reporting.
Thanks for that report, Lisa Joseph. We're one more story away from our interview with representatives from the NYC speaking to us on their educational assistance drive ahead of the start of the academic year. The Ministry of Health and Wellness continues to receive donations from various organizations to assist frontline workers in the fight against COVID-19. We have a report from Fresnel Neptune at the ministry.
The Ministry of Health recently received a donation of personal protective equipment, PPEs, and medical supplies from the Coca-Cola Foundation through the St. Lucia Red Cross. President of the St. Lucia Red Cross, Hubert Pierce, says, as part of its mandate, his organization felt it was necessary to assist in St. Lucia's response to COVID-19 and hence the need to source support from outside agencies.
The Coca-Cola Foundation did make some money available to us so that we could purchase some things or a few materials in the fight against COVID. And today, I am extremely happy that through the efforts of the Coca-Cola Foundation and that of the Red Cross, we will be giving to the Ministry of Health 30 gallons of hand sanitizer, 200 gallons of bleach, 1,000 face masks, and 15,000 gloves to enable them in the fight against the COVID.
Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Glensford Joseph, expressed gratitude to the St. Lucia Red Cross for the efforts in providing supplies which will assist St. Lucia's response and management of COVID-19.
The St. Lucia Red Cross saw it fit to contribute again to this COVID-19 response through the donation of personal protective equipment that are going to be very vital to ensure our frontline workers are able to face the continuous and evolving threat of COVID-19. Moreover, as pointed out, we need a very clean environment in which we conduct our activities. And with this, the cleaning agent provided by the St. Lucia Red Cross is going to go a very long way in ensuring that our cleaners are able to provide us with the environment in which we can conduct our business of managing COVID-19.
The Ministry of Health received a donation of hand sanitizers, face masks, gloves, and bleach. Reporting from the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Health and Wellness, I am Fresnel Neptune.
Thank you for that report, Fresnel Neptune. And at this moment, we would like to welcome two special guests in studio. They're from the National Youth Council and from RISE St. Lucia, Ms. Steffi Alfred, Treasurer of the NYC, and Dr. King, Co-Director of RISE. A special good morning to you both. Good morning. Morning. And so I was just readying the viewership in terms of what this venture is all about. Educational Assistance Drive, dubbed Pledge for a Child. If you could just give us an understanding of what this venture is all about, although, you can begin to, have get an idea of what it's all about, but just let us know what is happening, what is the NYC doing in the next week or so to raise some funds.
Okay, so on Sunday, the 23rd of August, 2020, we will be hosting the first ever educational assistance drive, well, a telethon. So that telethon, we dubbed it Pledge for a Child because we're really looking to provide educational assistance to students, primarily those at the secondary school level. And we would want to focus on about 20 Sa'afa Lewis students to provide them with scholarships for facilities fees and whatnot. So the educational assistance drive, it really came about because of COVID. We identified the impacts, the socioeconomic impacts of COVID-19 on students, primarily on the educational sector. And we think that a telephone is needed to provide assistance to those students who will not be able to meet that threshold, that group that is usually catered for through organizations like SSDF, because we know resources are limited and we know that they will not be able to necessarily cater for everybody. So that is where Pledge for a Child really comes in, to kind of fill in that gap, the gap that exists because of lack of resources and the lack of resources. So it is happening on Sunday, and we would want everybody to come out. We expect persons to be calling in. We will be making a few calls as well. So we really want to generate funds. We're looking at $150,000. Some persons say it's very ambitious, but if we can exceed that, that would be great. And these funds will be used to really assist these students so that they will be able to go back to school more comfortably, and that they will be able to have their uniforms and all the necessities needed for school. Yeah.
Okay. I know the eyes and the ears of the NYC are on the ground, always assessing the needs of the young people in St. Lucia, in the various districts and what have you. Can you just give us an understanding of perhaps the backstory to this? You did indicate a little bit COVID-19 stresses incurred as a result, but what have you guys been observing in the communities in terms of young people? What is their situation at this time?
So during the height, I guess, of COVID-19, when we were all home, we decided to host some meetings with our district youth and sports councils. These are the groups that we represent in communities, to get a sense of what is actually going on the ground, and to get a sense of what is happening in the communities. And many of them expressed that, yes, a lot of organizations are donating devices, and yes, a lot of donations are going in, and we're grateful for that. However, they expressed that there was a lack, and you would hear persons in Labrie saying that their students that they still don't have any laptops. And at that time we were like, but there's so many laptops, so many people are giving out laptops and tablets and all educational devices. So at that time we really sat and we really thought and we felt that, yes, every year a lot happens, but even now that COVID-19 has really come in and increased poverty levels, that we need to do something. So we identified even statistics. And we realized that before COVID, there were about 16,000 students living on less than $5 and I think 50 cents a day. So, these statistics, they were really alarming, and that is really what drives us.
Okay, and now segue to you, Dr. King, co-director of Rise St. Lucia. Speak to us about the role of Rise St. Lucia in this latest venture of the NYC, and also what are your thoughts on in terms of the significance of this initiative?
Yeah, it's very significant. In fact, I'll start with that second question first, because Ms. Alfred is quite right that there are 16,800, almost 34.5% of our youth are living in what we call poverty, which is below $6,200 or so a year in that household. So, that shows you, and now with COVID-19, and that was pre-COVID-19 statistics, with COVID-19, that number has gone up. And so the situation is really quite desperate. Also, from a Rise point of view, education has always been one of our mantras, because we believe that investment in education is truly the best investment that you can make, be it a private sector investment or public sector investment. The return on that investment is great. The need to educate our youth in this 21st century is paramount. Education is no longer a privilege, education is a right. And that's what Rise believes. We were involved, as you know, earlier this year, and we still are, with Dr. Venus Cherry, and Steffi spoke about that initiative. Tablets, we identified 670 households that required tablets. And to date, we have now got to 400 tablets that we delivered 250. We have another 150 to deliver this week. That's across the country. So when NYC now identified Pledge for a Child, it's only natural for Rise to support the NYC. What we have done so far is we've written through the Chamber of Commerce. We asked them to advocate with all the businesses in the country. We wrote to the Medical and Dental Association and asked them to reach out to every doctor in the country. We wrote to the Bar Association and asked them to reach out to every lawyer in the country. And we said, please open up your wallets and contribute to this most worthy cause. Many have, some have not yet. And I take this morning to advocate yet again to all who have not given, please give. Because it is so important. You only have to look into the face of some of the households and some of the children to understand how important this is. And what I love about this particular initiative, not only is it looking at secondary school children with school books, tablets, uniforms, support for them to get to school and to participate actively in the blended education curriculum and process that we have to use in this COVID time, but it also speaks to scholarships for the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. For at least 20, we would like to do many more than 20, but at least 20. So the $150,000 that we're talking about is really not that much money. You need to give. You need to give. That's all I can say. Sunday is a telethon. I want all St. Lucians to step up. Even if you have $5 to give, $10 to give, give. Because this is a very worthy cause. The National Youth Council has put a nice process in place so that the people who are going to benefit from the donations will be people who are deserving. So it's not going to go to people who can otherwise afford. This is really what we call equity now, giving to those who cannot afford. It is so important. Please, don't let the NYC down. Don't let our youth down on this initiative.
Thanks for that, Dr. King. And I'm going to capitalize on the opportunity having you here. If you could just speak on a little bit, COVID-19 and just going back again to the youth. In terms of addressing our social ills, we've had the issue with poverty, confronted with poverty. Can you speak to the importance of using the multi-sectoral approach? You as a former CMO, speaking on the multi-sectoral approach to addressing these ills. Because at this point in time, the COVID-19 scenario, we're now seeing that several different sectors, different ministries now have to come into one space to decide and to determine how we're going to fix some of our socioeconomic issues.
It's fascinating because, it has always been so. But when I say so, it has always been societal development, human development requires a holistic multi-sectoral approach and a blended public-private sector approach as well. It's so important that we as a nation understand how we have to unite to develop our country and our people. The divisions that we have allowed to develop over the years, COVID-19 has shown create the gaps that we can no longer afford. So these divisions are ministerial, sectoral, public, private, they are political, they are economic, they are class, they are geographic. And the time has come to move away from that. In fact, it was very interesting listening to your news this morning. Edgar Stephen, manager of UNRWA, talking about how COVID-19 has forced people to come together. That's brilliant. That's what it should be. And I was listening to our CMO, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George. The solution strategy for keeping the population as safe as we can from COVID-19 has worked and is good. But now, what we need to do as a country is join and each of us participate, because the socioeconomic fallout from where we are now with COVID-19, given our already problems in our socioeconomic situation in our country, our societal development, where we were, and what COVID-19 has added in terms of stresses and pressures on communities, families, governments, and private businesses, it is so important now that we unite. We unite in a manner in which we change the paradigm. This paradigm that we've operated in the past of winner take all, capitalism, you survive by your, shall we say, doing whatever you can to maximize your profits. That is not the approach that is going to allow us to move forward as a society anymore, and COVID-19 has shown that. Food security, education security, physical security.
Access to healthcare.
Access to healthcare. These are the things that are fundamental, foundational things for societal and human development, and we must come together now. I'm proud of RISE for the years of advocating for that and working in communities that are otherwise stigmatized and marginalized. Mm-hmm. And you know, now I put out a post this morning. We're living in the love of the common people now. That's my hope, because it is the common people now that need to rise in the love, and that's what this country needs. Common people with common love, unified to the common purpose of national development, societal development, family development, community development, and personal development. Which brings us back to this initiative.
Exactly.
Pledge for a Child. That's what it's all about. It's a common love. Just developing our children. What greater thing can we do?
Okay. Going back to the source, COVID-19. Mm-hmm. As a career physician, Dr. King, can you just, we've so far heard the region sing the praises of the management of COVID-19 here in St. Lucia.
Yes.
Can you give a review as a career physician of our management here of COVID-19, ministers, everyone on the Operations Command Center team?
Yes. And in fact, I think what is really important, and COVID-19 has shown us from the health sector how crucial it is to operate from first what I would call basic principles, basic old-fashioned public health and clinical principles. So the public health principles of quarantine, isolation, rapid case identification, contact tracing, those basic public health principles, which is what we applied in St. Lucia, I think in a very strategic, organized and effective manner, is why we have been so effective at controlling COVID-19 in our general population. So I think that has been really good. I think that there has been, I'm a lab person, and I find that there's been, and in fact, Dr. Belma George made a beautiful point this morning about our last case. Came in COVID-19 negative, mm-hmm. went into quarantine for 14 days because she's coming from the United States, I think an area of active community transmission, mm-hmm. goes into quarantine and on 7 days comes up PCR positive. That shows you the importance of not just relying on a lab test. A lab test that said you are negative does not mean that you are negative. Mm-hmm. You need to still follow clinical and biological, pathological principles as well as public health principles. Because to tell you the truth, the shedding of virus is not, as you get infected, you shed virus. Mm-hmm. There's a ramping up of viral shedding, and there's a ramping down over the 5 days prior to symptoms, and then the 14 days post symptoms. So depending on where you test, you can have a negative test. Mm-hmm. Just based on the biology of the pathology of the virus. So that is why, again, it comes back to understanding basic first principles and applying them. And the Ministry of Health has done that. The other thing that needs to happen is we need, with the multi-sectoral approach that you alluded to earlier, we need to move into what we would call the new normal. Prior to a vaccine, prior to really defeating this COVID-19, we need to move to a system where we can be as normal as possible and still safe, which means we need to move away from the aggressive state of emergency and move towards a participatory, understanding approach so that we can open up our economies in a safe manner, we can live together in a safe manner and improve our quality of life in a safe manner. But it means that each and every one of us have a role to play and a responsibility in that process. So to St. Lucians, we want to get back to normal as much as we can, or as near normal in this new normal. That means that we must take responsibility and work with everybody. Just like the Ministry of Health must put the right regulations in place, the government, because there are regulations we need to attach to our Quarantine Act to modernize our Quarantine Act. There are regulations we need to put on our Public Health Act so that we can move to this new normal, move away from centralized command and control, and move towards participatory, responsible control of COVID-19.
Do you think we're at that point where St. Lucians, the population at large, is ready to take that, well, at least the authorities being prepared to put that trust, that extent of trust into the population at this time?
You know, I've been quite proud of our St. Lucian population and how we have responded. I mean, I know that there are pressures now, and there's a lot of frustration now, and frustration has a way of creating some irrational and irresponsible behavior. But I think the way to deal with that is to actually, for want of a better word, engage people in a genuine, honest, democratic, responsible manner, and allow people to, yes, vent their frustrations, but also allow them now to understand and give them the right tools to look after themselves. Are solutions ready? Oh, yes. And if we are not ready, well, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. So we have to be ready. We don't have a choice.
So do you dare risk it? Or do you just be cautious, in an abundance of caution, ensure that the population is safe, especially at this time where we're seeing new waves of COVID-19?
It's a difficult situation, but you know, COVID-19, there's not only the viral problems, there are the socioeconomic problems. So you in a holistic response and an intelligent response, you have to balance both, because we spoke about the frustrations. The state of emergency and harsh command and control can actually create socioeconomic fallout that can be even more dangerous. So you have to be very careful. You have to balance both, and this is what a wise government has to do. And the way you do that, I think, is with having full participation, full democratic participation of communities, institutions, and government. The multi-sectoral holistic response, again, that's what we need. You need to have faith in people. You see, I personally have a lot of faith in the St. Lucian people, and I believe that the government can equally have or has that faith in the people. And if you have that faith, then you move forward in that faith with your people, and let's do it.
Absolutely. Holding fast that St. Lucians are coming to, or have already come to, the point where they can be trusted with that level of responsibility. We are speaking to Dr. King from Rise of St. Lucia, and also Steffi Alfred, Treasurer of the NYC. Coming back to the Educational Assistance Drive, yes. We ventured down a rabbit hole there. Pledge for a Child. We are due for another break. When we come back, we speak on the activity coming up this Sunday, where you can watch it. It will be happening virtually. We'll have the details to that after this break. Stay with us.
Better yet, use soap and water. We must protect each other if we are to beat this corona.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier, together we can beat this corona.
So you don't become the next case. Avoid touching your face. I'm sure you've been told so. Handshakes and hugging are up. No.
Advice, easier to please. Cover your mouth and your nose if you cough or sneeze.
Practice social distancing and avoid large social gatherings.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. St. Lucia, be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
For further information, please contact the hotline at 311 or the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349.
Thank you for staying with us. We are speaking to Ms. Steffi Alfred, Treasurer of the NYC, National Youth Council, and Dr. Stephen King, from Rise St. Lucia, co-director of Rise St. Lucia, and we're talking of this latest venture, an effort to raise funds for the less fortunate kids in our society who are going to secondary school and who are preparing to go to Sir Arthur Lewis for the new academic year. And we so far spoke about the inspiration behind it, the thrust behind it. If you could just, Steffi, speak to us about the details of this upcoming event and how can persons participate.
Okay, so Pledge for a Child, as I said, it is an educational drive, a telethon, which will be hosted here in the GIS studios.
Okay.
And it will be happening on the 23rd of August. This is this Sunday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And it will be virtual primarily. We would have hosts in-house, but we would have individuals who would be sending videos of various artists, and we'll have young persons performing, not just singing, but we'll have dances and whatnot, and we'll also give the general public some more an idea of what NYC is and what we are doing. So you pledge via our bank account, which is at Bank of St. Lucia, and the number for the bank account is 101150355. And you can get this information on our Facebook, Instagram, and our Twitter. So follow us there, and all the information will be floating around, as well as a link for PayPal for individuals in the diaspora who would be willing to contribute. So that in a nutshell is what is happening. On the day itself, we will also be encouraging persons to tweet and to hit us up in the DMs telling us that, I'm willing to make a pledge of whatever amount and give your details so that we'll be able to reach you. And yeah, we want to make this a very fun event, and we don't want it to be, I don't want to say like the other telethons, but we want it to be more youthful in that. So we'll have young persons, we have a host, Desra Long. I think more persons will know him as Purple Crab. So we have a youthful twist to a telethon, yes.
Okay, and with the telethon, I know you're accepting cash, but if I could go back to the Easter telethon we had for the nation, they also did accept kind and items and so on. Is there any opportunity for that with this telethon?
Yes, so if persons are willing to drop off items, they could do so at our office in the William Peter Boulevard, that is in Castries upstairs, Whitey Limber. Okay,
so keeping in mind that it's an educational drive, so don't just drop off cans of tomato sauce,
Yes.
You could bring the books and, okay, got it, perfect. And now to the fact that Rise St. Lucia has pulled some strings.
Yes.
If you could just speak to us about the funds that have been raised so far, how are you guys feeling inspired? Are you guys feeling, Good about what you're seeing so far in terms of the efforts that you guys have put in, as well as Rise St. Lucia?
We are most grateful. I think up to yesterday, a company said that they're willing to donate some scholarships. And even partnering with Rise St. Lucia, this is a big inspiration right here. So every 2 days, every day, I'll call him up. We were speaking last night. We were speaking, and it's very encouraging to know that there are persons out there really, really pushing us and willing to support. So we expect to reach our mark. I want to say that, crossing my fingers and my toes and everything, but of course we'd want to exceed it. So we're going in somewhat satisfied with where we are right now, but again, encouraging everybody, businesses, individuals, schools, whoever you are, any little thing would do so much. It would go such a long way to assist students. And as Dr. King said, it will be going to the vulnerable. It will not be going to anybody who can't afford otherwise. We have implemented a process, really, with SSDF. Because we, going into this, figured, okay, we would put together a registration form, persons will be able to register. But then when we really think about it, it takes so much more. And SSDF already have that comprehensive program or process in place to really identify the poorest of the poor in our communities. So with them, we'll be able to identify the students who would be requiring this type of support and aid.
Okay. Yes. And Dr. King, we usually see every year around this time, we see individuals sometimes just sprouting up trying to help individuals, trying to help students go back to school. Can you speak to a more established system where we could have scholarships being offered to students? I know Rise St. Lucia has made many efforts in past years, and also other organizations, but a place where students know, you know, in the years past we know of Island School. You know, but where do we know, where can kids go where they know they can work towards this scholarship, they can work toward that scholarship? How do we popularize that idea once more?
Oh yeah, and through the years, Rise, we've partnered, we've spoken, and we've developed a number of initiatives. And in fact, I'm so pleased to be with the NYC this year, and tomorrow I'll be speaking to the executive to try and see how we can chart a way to some. I'll tell you, after we did the Illinois Institute of Technology initiative, which produced what we call the Caribbean Visionaries in the United States. At that time, that you may remember, that was an initiative where we had scholarships, 75 scholarships to the US, to a private university in the US. Dr. Karl Mark and Dr. Patton and the NS and the National Society for Black Engineers in the United States. And that initiative actually went Caribbean-wide, and over 150 Caribbean youth have accessed scholarships. This Saturday is a 10-year anniversary of that initiative. And we're going to be having a Zoom call with all of those students from all over the Caribbean. It's one, to celebrate, but it's secondly to design a way forward. Part of that way forward at the time, and we wrote to the cabinet at the time, and what we were asking for is to set up a scholarship fund where if I have some money that I want to put, that I could otherwise put in a fixed deposit, allow me to put it into the scholarship fund to get a return on my money, but also it could be a long-term return, 10 years or whatever, but that money could be used for access. In particular, we're looking at tertiary education. So we were mostly talking about community college and university at the time. I thought, and we still think it's a good idea, because businesses, you see, it's enlightened self-interest. If as a business, it is known that you get that education investment gives you primarily a 7-year return on your money. As a business, if you invest in the education of the youth, especially tertiary education of youth, you build business in the country because you cause the country's businesses to grow. You cause the productivity of the country to grow. That redounds to the benefit of your business because you get more customers. There's more money, more business, more customers. So that is why we wanted private people to start contributing. And we wanted them, yes, to get a return, but to give. So it could be it's a smaller return, maybe, but it is a greater return in other ways as well, if you see what the direct and the indirect returns on your investment. So that's a proposal that I want to discuss with the NYC, because if the government does not want to do it, then you know something, the civil society can do it. Because there's no reason why we need government, because we're a civil society. We can do things on our own. We can speak to banks, we can set up funds in banks, we can speak to diaspora, we can raise monies from private sector. So government can facilitate us if it wants to be a partner, and that will be fine. But let's move forward. We can't wait for something like this. Is so important. Because St. Lucian youth are way behind Caribbean youth in terms of having access to university. Because even to UWI, you know, I mean, we know of a number of youth that are desirous and competent A students, but they don't have the financial means to get to university. They are doomed to stay their dreams are shattered. That's not right to the youth, and we want to change that. So that's one. The other initiative that we have, which we partnered with the British government and the Jamaican, was the youth service. Now, that was interesting because we're looking at creating a credit system for youth who give to community, volunteer. And that credit, we were saying that if government could back that credit, and even businesses could back that credit could be redeemed for bursaries and scholarships. How we were thinking, if I was a youth without a mother and father on the street, could I get myself to university? Could I get myself through primary school, secondary school to university? Right now you can't. However, if the society was to actually support me by, if I give volunteer service and I get credit, they would allow me to trade that credit for scholarships and bursaries, maybe, and books and tablets and laptops. Maybe I could. Maybe I could on my own 2 feet without, make it through. So that is a second initiative which would work for both primary, secondary, and tertiary education. So what we need to do as a people is brainstorm on how we can create this better access to education. Our goal, at least 25% of our youth should get to university. That should, to me, that should be our goal. We are way below that. Way below that.
Okay. Thank you very much for sitting in with us, Steffi Alfred and Dr. Stephen King. We really do appreciate you, Arise St. Lucia, as well as the NYC, making this effort to reach as many young persons at this time. We know the COVID-19 situation has impacted many persons in St. Lucia, many households in St. Lucia, and another institution is rising up to the challenge to provide some assistance for those affected. Again, we just want to let you know that you can tune in on Sunday. We'll have live on NTN the Educational Assistance Drive Pledge for a Child, 23rd August, 2 to 6 p.m. There will be performances by young St. Lucian artists and hosted by Desiree Long. You said Purple Crab. Live on NTN. So we encourage you to tune in. You could also go on to the NYC handles, social media handles, to find out how you can donate via the Bank of St. Lucia account and via PayPal. Once again, it's all the time we have for now. We'd like to thank you both for sitting in with us. My name is Jessie Leonce. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. We're started TGIF. Goodbye. Cheers.